Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Happy Life. I am your host, Marquise Holyfield, and I'm super excited to be with you all this afternoon. And of course, like we always do, we sit and have conversations, a good adult conversations about relationships, how to continue to thrive and grow and develop them and make them healthy. And to this afternoon, I have one of my really good friends, Sarita, with me. Say hello, Sarita.
Hi everybody.
So, Sarita and I are going to just have a good conversation. So, the first thing we're going to talk about, Sarita. So, girl, now tell me, you've been out
Oh,
here in these streets for a little bit longer than some of us. So, let's talk about this dating in 2024. What is really like?
stay
Talk
in
about
the
the
house. Stay
highs
in
and the
the house.
lows.
No, okay. So as you know, for me, the dating journey is a little bit new. Can you hear me okay?
I can't.
Okay. So I've only been dating honestly, like really dating since 2019, 2020.
Mhm.
I spent I'm a single person, obviously, a single mom. And I've been raising my kids. So from probably about 15, 16 years, I didn't date.
Okay.
And I know people go, that's impossible. No,
Ah.
it is actually not impossible. Not impossible at all, because I really spent time just, really raising my kids. And honestly, I did not make myself available to date. There
Mm.
may have been one or two people sprinkled out throughout, but not really. I did not really date. And so in 2020 is when I really, really started to get into the dating scene. And I started out like a lot of people do. You start with, that time was COVID as well, too. So you start with the apps. You start with, maybe a friend can introduce me or whatever. But I mostly dated on the apps. And
Mhm.
in 2024, I still do that. I still do the apps. I don't meet very many people in person, like just being out at a bar.
Okay.
But then again, I don't really go to very many bars. So that could be part of the reason why I don't. But, the apps to me they've been good. I've met some really quality people on there, and then I've met some people that are just not worth it. So I think it just really depends on what you're looking for and understanding that everybody has a choice and you may not be everybody's choice, and that's okay. So,
I get that. It's funny you talked about the apps because I remember when I first started in the dating process, right around the same time you did. And
mhm,
of course, everybody knows my story. I before 2019 had been married for 25 years
yeah,
and then got divorced and then, took some time to heal. And I was like, okay, I want to date. And then I was like, oh my God, what is going on for real? And then all of my friends kept saying, "Well, get on the apps. Let's do this." And I was like, "No." But like you, they was like, "Well, where you gonna find somebody at? You don't go to
right,
bars. You don't go."
right,
I
go to it.
was like, "Can I not meet him in the bar? I don't know if I want the bar man."
Yeah,
So I get it. It's one of those things of where it's
mhm,
a challenge because it's like when you haven't done it in so long, it's just like,
yeah,
okay, where do I start? How do I do this?
yeah. And I had to learn, and I had to kind of learn it all over again, because now when you're dating, because I was in my 40s by then, so I'm not dating in my 40s the same way I was dating in my 20s.
Yes.
I'm looking for different things, and I learned some of the things I didn't want as well as some of the things I wanted. And I learned a lot more about myself just being out there and talking to people than I did sometimes about anybody else. I learned more about me. So I learned the my kind of my personality. I learned more about my personality. I learned more about the things I'm willing to accept. I learned more about what I would consider a deal breaker and not a deal breaker. Things that I would have been in my 20s, like, oh, absolutely not. Well, in my 40s, I'm like, maybe, it's not a complete deal breaker depending on the situation. But you take some if you take time, and a lot of people, the things I get from my friends about why they don't like the apps is because you're not really getting that authentic first meet.
Hard.
And here's my answer to that. You meet someone on a dating app. I strongly believe that you should meet right away.
Mhm.
Now, if you spend 2 weeks chatting on the phone, chatting through a text message, anybody can fall in love through a conversation.
Come on.
anybody can, oh my God, I like them so much. They're exactly what I wanted through a conversation. Because if I'm just talking to you on an app, I could be anything I want to be. So
Mhm.
I strongly suggest you get that first authentic meet so that right away. I'm not spending a month talking to you on the phone and then I meet you in person. I'm like, absolutely not. I just
Exactly.
wasted a whole month. So it's more or less, hey, hi, let's meet within the first week, I'm going to meet you in person. And it doesn't have to be for me a full date. It could be like, hey, let's just meet up for coffee. Let's meet up for ice cream. Let me see if I like you, if we vibe in kind of way.
I am so glad you said that because I know you haven't read the book. So I'm putting a disclaimer out there. She has not read the book,
I've
y'all.
not read the book.
She got it.
I
But
got
we
it.
promised to do a podcast before she read and a podcast after she read so she can talk through both pieces.
Yes.
But it's funny. In the book, one of the things that I do bring up and I say is, okay, ladies, let's take the time to get to know each other. Let's talk. Let's go on a coffee date. Let's go on an ice cream date. Let's not be so excited to go to, I always call it Shay Shay Foo Foo, but
Yeah.
getting all dressed up, let's go to Shay Shay Foo Foo and let him spend all this different money and stuff on us because you get so excited about that process, you're not
Hmm.
really paying attention to
The
him.
person.
And
Hmm.
I said that I think it's important for us to really think through, like, these are the times where you get to know them and ask them the questions about, like, okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself. And it was funny, we were all laughing about this because I was saying that it's key and important. And I was like, and I said in the book, I know y'all gonna hit me and say, what you mean the first date should be a coffee date? What you mean? I said, because I tell people you don't want to waste your time. And it's
Hmm.
funny that you said the same thing. It's like, no, I want to talk to you, but I want to I want to be
Because
able
to me, like, if I meet you at a bar? Let's just say I go to a bar, we sit down, we're talking, I meet you. Yeah, I can tell right away whether or not I like you. But again, I'm not gonna really know until I actually spend a little bit of time with you. Because
to.
again, that first meet in the bar, you can tell me anything you want to tell me. You could be whoever you want. True, there is some validity to meeting somebody and having either a connection or not having a connection. But I just really feel like if you're going to use the app, be smart about it. Like if you're going to use the apps, be smart, take your time. You can read through somebody's profile. I actually don't put a whole lot on my profile because if you want to know me, you're not gonna get that from what I wrote.
Right.
So I am big on, yes, we're chatting. And if I like you through the chat, I want to have a phone conversation, then I want to meet you in person. And we don't even necessarily have to have a phone conversation. We could just plan to meet in person
Okay.
and let me see. Like, is there a vibe? Do I even like you? And should we not waste each other's time? So,
Yeah.
because it's not all about me, because just as I have to choose that person has to choose me. So
Yeah.
they may feel like, oh yeah, I like how she portrays herself in the chat, and then meet me in person, like she crazy. No,
Right. I want to her or vice versa.
oh, vice versa. So, and I think that's what happens is our feelings get hurt because somebody doesn't choose us.
Mhm.
And I know that I have experienced that, because you want to be chosen and your feelings get hurt when they don't choose you. So sometimes maybe meeting in person is a little bit intimidating because on the app you don't know. So you
Right.
don't want to put yourself out there for that first meet. But
Yeah.
I definitely say if you're going to use the apps, be smart and definitely make it a point to meet right away and don't waste your time falling in love with a text message.
Yes. I totally agree. It's so funny when you start talking about the choosing us. And I think that goes to when, part of my first chapter, we talk about the loneliness of season and how
Mhm.
in happy life and how it prepares you for the next, your elevation. And I think it's important for us to get so comfortable with ourselves that yes, we want to be in relationships, we want to be thriving, we want the ultimate goal to have a life partner. But I always said, if God made it so that the person didn't choose you, he or she wasn't right for you the first place. So God was saving and protecting you. So
Mhm.
embrace that piece. The rejection, I think, and I talk about that too. No, everybody hate that word rejection, but the
Mhm.
rejection is sometimes protection.
It is, and it's hard to get used to when you've not, um, or when you've had some major rejection in your life. For example, a little bit of my story is I didn't grow up with my dad.
Mhm.
So for me, and maybe some other women, I don't know, I can only speak from my experience. Growing up without that father feeling like, oh, the first man in my life rejected me when how am I going to handle rejection from anybody else? So when someone else comes up and rejects me, it puts me right back into that little girl, oh, my feelings are hurt space. And
Yeah.
now I'm looking for some validation and I'm looking for some attention and I'm trying to grasp at whatever I can grasp at. And that's how we end up settling for less than what we deserve
That
because
part.
we're grasping for something to fulfill a need that we have to fulfill within ourselves. And it took me many, many years to be comfortable with myself and to realizing first, I'm already chosen by God. Whether or not a man on this earth chooses me, I'm
Mhm.
already chosen by God, and then I choose myself.
Yeah.
So, and some people would say I don't choose myself because I do. I have a tendency to put a lot of people before me, but I choose me. I do.
I think that's a process. I think that's one of the things that I also learned in this process too. The early
Mhm.
part of the dating game, I wasn't choosing myself. I was picking everybody else and doing stuff for everybody else. And then until I realized, why I keep getting the same result? And I was like, oh, because I'm not choosing B. And I
No,
think that's important for us to really think about during this dating process. Helping yourself to be able to identify what are your needs, what are your expectations, and also, is it what's right for you? Because I think a lot of times we get to this place where we get into the place where, I'm in my 40s or I'm over 40 and I want to be in a relationship. So I'm just going to choose the first person to come along. No, we're not going to do that. We are going to wait for the best to
right.
come. And in the meantime, enjoy your preparation season. Allow God to fill you and to pour into you to get to your next. And so, with that being said, my next question is, so as you're on your first date,
Mhm,
like you said, you're doing the apps, within a week or so, yeah, y'all meeting. So what
mhm,
are the questions that you were asking? Because I realized that's where people are struggling. They're struggling of like, how do I get the authentic answer
mhm, mhm.
and get what I'm really looking for, without being the person that's being like abrupt and abrasive by
Yeah.
asking questions. So how do I ask these questions?
I'm not gonna lie. I still struggle with that. I still, and which is funny because because the problem is I'm a talker. Like I'm a talker, so you will know my whole life story day one. Like I have no shame. There's no, it is what it is. Accept me or don't accept me. Like it or don't like it. I'm a talker, so I actually still struggle with the questions because you can sit down and on a dating app you go through. Well, have you been married? How long have you been divorced? How long have you been single? How many kids do you have? Do you want more kids? You go through that standard. What do you do for a living? What are your plans? What are your life goals? Like you go through that kind of in the beginning. And so I have, this time around in dating, I'm not so much as bullet pointing questions to people as I am letting them have a conversation with me and letting you tell me what you want to tell me. And everything else, if we vibing and everything's going good, I'll learn what I need to know.
It's so funny. It was funny. I was just talking to someone recently about this, and I was saying how part of this happy life process, I'm going to come up with different dating question
Mhm.
scenarios. So they're not somewhat of they're questions, but they're questions that allow you to get the answers that you need so that you can
Yeah.
feel. Because one of the things that I learned, and I learned from my significant other, is when I really want to know more about him, just let him talk.
Hmm. Just let them talk.
My shut up and just
Buy
be
that man
quiet.
a drink.
Well, it ain't even that, buy him a drink.
Buy that man a
Get a
drink and
drink,
let
and
him
he will
talk.
tell you everything, y'all. And same thing for the woman, but I think it's also when you get to the place where the person is comfortable,
Yeah.
stuff will start to just come out, and you be like, oh, and then you get to assess. Now, do I want to deal with this, or do I don't want to deal with this?
Right.
It was funny when I was dating early on. I didn't even realize that that was what was happening because I had went on a date and the guy was just telling me all kind of stuff, his whole
Mm.
history, what he had did, all the stuff that he did wrong, what didn't work in the last relationship, and all this
Yeah.
other stuff. And I don't even think I really asked the question. We just kind of spiraled into that, and I was just
Mhm.
like, and then I wasn't wise, y'all. I can say I'm wise now. I wasn't wise because I didn't heed to what he was saying. I was like, oh, he'd already told me everything he was trying to tell me, and I was so excited about being on the date, like I was
Yeah.
telling y'all, that I didn't listen. So I think it's key and important for the listening factor, so you can learn some of these different things.
And because you have to let people talk and you have to see if you're vibing, if you're getting along, if you can have a because here's the thing. If I can sit down and ask you questions, a smart person knows how to answer the question that will tickle my ear. And then that tickle in my ear will move down to, oh, girl, this is it. And it's really not it. So sometimes you have to let a person have a conversation because you want to know, can you communicate?
Yeah.
Can we communicate? So if we can't hold a conversation, I might not be into you or you might not be into me. So who cares about what your life goal is?
Yeah.
Because if I'm not going to see you after this ice cream cone, I don't care how many more kids you want. So we have to be real with each other and we have to be real with ourselves to understand if we're just asking questions, then we're already planning something that we don't even know this person.
Mhm.
And I made that mistake early on, trying to figure out, do our futures align? Well, I can't even tell you if our futures align if my today doesn't align with you. So I have to like give it some time. And that took me some time to learn because I was dating, call myself dating on purpose. I was dating to work towards marriage. And you'll hear me say, even in my own podcast, when we talked about dating, my thing was, well, I'm dating. I don't need to make a friend. I want to be married. I got plenty of friends. I'm a friend person. I got tons of friends. I don't need one more friend. I don't need one more friend. That was my stance. And I will tell you that I have changed my mind.
Tell me
I
why.
have changed after the last relationship, this last heartbreak that I had. I changed my mind because I went into that going, we don't have to be friends. And his thing was, I want this. And I thought we were on the same page, but I didn't take the time to get to know him. And
Mm.
had I taken the time to get to know him, maybe I would have paid a little bit more attention to the red flags that were coming my way versus saying, oh, I want to make this man my husband, but I wasn't paying attention
Yeah.
because I didn't take the time to develop the friendship that was needed to sustain us.
Yeah.
And so I fought that idea for a very long time. But now I'm like, yeah, give me some friends.
And it's funny, we laugh at this, but I want people to really know and embrace the friendship piece. We talk
Hmm.
about it in Happy Life, but I talk about how, like, me and my significant other, we were friends for 5 years before we
Hmm.
started. I saw him and I was immediately like, "Oh, okay," and I tell the story all the time. I was married at the time, getting ready to go through a divorce, and he was married.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that he was married. And then when he said it, I was like, oh, we just friends. And I left
Right.
it at that. And we went, because we don't do that. We not that we don't do.
Right. That we don't do.
If you take it, we stay on this side of the road. But and so forth. And he was, we would just talk. And at that point, we started talking about the kids and life and
Yeah.
just different type of stuff, but nothing romantic, nothing to even insinuate that we were even interested in each other. And of course,
Right.
life changed. I got a divorce a year later, and then 2 years later, he ended up getting a divorce. And I didn't know it and how we even came up on it because we were friends. He had called for something completely different. And then we just started talking about relationship 3 hours later. And I was like, and even then in that moment, I still was like, oh, he's just my friend. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until probably like another year and a half after that, he started flirting with me. And I kept doing this. Is he flirting? I'm looking around like, is this man flirting with me? And
Is
I
she in the room? Who is
right,
he flirting with?
right. Who else you talking to? But and I remember my male friends kept saying, I'm gonna need you to get some emotional intelligence because you're missing all the signals. And I was like, that man doesn't like me. We just friends. Quit trying to gas me up. But what I realized, what made it easier through our friendship, is for us to talk about, like, hey, I'm attracted to you, I'm interested in you, made it easier for us to have that conversation. It made it easier for us to start to be able to see, for us to try to see what this was going to look like. And
Hmm.
I'll never forget it because we came up and made this deal with each other that, we can try to see what this looks like,
Yeah.
but our friendship was always going to be number one. Number two, we was going to be open and honest no matter what. We
Hmm.
wasn't going to sugarcoat it. Tell me what it is that you need to tell me,
Right.
and let's go from there. And then understand. what each other's priorities were
Mhm.
as we moved on. And as we moved on, we, everybody had those rough spots and so forth, but it has prevailed because we friends. And to this day, um,
Yeah.
our relationship, we're talking almost 3 years later. The friendship has really helped us to grow.
Mhm.
Like, so when he get frustrated, upset, or have a bad day and so forth, I don't be all in my feelings. I just be like, okay, so what's wrong with you? Is that friend?
Right.
You
Right.
know,
You have to the friendship, what I have learned in developing friendships with people, and I have male friends. I've always had male friends. We all have. But I think it allows you to have that open conversation. Well, I'm not stressed about, what are your, life goals? What are you hoping to achieve? Do you want to take a wife or a husband?
I
Do you want to, or, do you want more kids? Do you want this? Do you want that? Developing the friendship, and the friendship is what's going to last longer, because everything else is going to run out. Everything else runs out. Like when I'm tired of you, when I want to be bothered, when the days that the love runs out, because love is always a choice. I believe love is a choice, but the days I'm choosing not to love you, I still have that friend that I can fall back on. Like I just think that it helps to have that foundation, that base, because I enjoy being with my friends.
Yeah.
Always enjoy being my friend. So I think you have to just develop. I'm learning to be better at developing that friendship level and that friendship foundation with anyone, because I didn't do it before. Not gonna lie, I didn't do it before.
And I think it helps you to build the things we also talking about in the book, the vulnerability, to build the trust, to build the real intimacy. I tell people all the time, intimacy is called see into me. So
Hmm.
it's not just the physical piece, that's just the icing on the cake. It's the
Yeah.
emotional, it's the spiritual, it's the intellectual, the mental pieces that you need to sustain
Hmm.
a relationship. And
Because I'm
that's
not
why,
trying to pretend.
right, you don't have to
I'm
pretend.
not pretending on who I am. I'm not pretending. Trying to be. I'm not trying to be what you want.
Right.
I'm not trying to be what you want. I'm just being me. And then when you're building a friendship, it allows that acceptance for you to be who you are versus trying to be what you think somebody needs you to be so that they choose you so you're not rejected. So
That
you're avoiding that whole rejection piece.
part.
And this is just from my experience. I am by no way nobody's expert. I don't know nothing. But I just know I just know from my experience and from what I've listened to, from what I've read, and from the counsel that I've received, getting the friendship down really just, that's the foundation of anything else, of
And
everything.
it really helps because even when you angry at them or you're upset with them, you
Mhm.
still remember, "Well, that's my friend."
Yeah.
And so you take it from a different perspective and a different
Right.
understanding. Um,
Hmm.
you give grace in a way to your friend that you might not have give to the other person. But I
Right.
think it's also it gives you tenacity to decide, do I want to go through the trenches? And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that people don't realize and understanding that, the love, we always talk about love is a choice and,
Hmm.
love sometimes fade and sometimes you got to rekindle it. But I think is the key factor of it is when you are friends, you have so many other things to keep the relationship going and keep it in
Hmm.
common. If it's reading books, bike riding, y'all like documentaries,
And
y'all want to
hanging
talk about
out.
politics, you know. So it's not all the pressure of you being my everything. And then you get to the point where it's like, oh, you going to hang out with your boys? Okay. See you later. Have fun. Or you going to go with your girls? Or you encouraging?
Yeah.
You've been with the boys lately. Why don't you go ahead and get with them?
I gotten to that level of relationship yet, but we'll see.
Well, from my experience, it's one
I've
of
not
those things.
gotten to that level.
It's
Not
from
in a long time.
but from my experience, it's one of those things that you want that you encourage that because you really care about them as a person, and
Hmm.
then you're not so focused on have I been getting a representative for the last 6 months, or is this really them?
Yeah. And I think you just have to. But if you're not, but that's when I think too, you spoke of loneliness earlier,
Mhm.
where you have to be comfortable with yourself.
Yes.
And you have to be okay with being with yourself, because yes, you can make that person your everything, but they really shouldn't be your everything.
Mhm.
You can't, I we serve a jealous God. So I'm not trying to make them so much of my life that I can't survive without them. Now, I could be in a place where, you know what, I don't want to see my life without you. I like you being in it, but I'm so comfortable with me that you can go do your own thing and you can go do whatever it is you do because you're my everything, but you're not my everything.
That
If
part.
that makes sense. That's my favorite song, Mary J. Blige, and my everything. That's like my favorite one. I can't wait to sing that to somebody. But at the same time, I'm comfortable enough with myself where I'm not so lonely that I just need you by my side, like
Yeah.
24/7.
And
That can't.
I think that's key and important because I think that's what the friendship does because it lets you it kind of lets you off the hook,
Yeah.
in the sense to feel like, okay, we good, but
Yeah.
also realize, oh, you need some me time. Because when you built it on the friendship, you
Hmm.
start to understand that, oh, you need time, I need
Yeah.
time, we need time, and then you need to go do something with somebody else time.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of times people get in these relationships and sometimes they smother the person. I've heard people say, you smothering me. But that's because of the fact that you're trying to make them your everything. And one day we're gonna talk about the fairy tale effect. When Cinderella they
Yeah.
talk.
So I'm a huge, for what I'm told, a hopeless romantic. And I'm a huge hopeless romantic. Um, I believe in the fairy tale. I just really believe real love is possible.
Mhm.
Um, but and I had to learn not to smother people. But then again, I do that with my friends. I'm a people person. I thrive off people. So I'm very like I don't do I hate to say I don't do well by myself because I do just fine by myself, but I love people. And when I have somebody, and if it's people that I like to be around, then I want to be around you. I want
Mhm.
to spend time with you. I want to do things with you because I'm such a people person. Like I get energy from other people's energy. So that's why as you know, every time I talk to you, we're talking for it's like, oh, girl, give me 5 minutes. And it's like 30 minutes later, I'm
Yeah.
still talking to you. Because I'm a talker, I'm a people person, and I know those things about me. So I have to learn, and I'm still learning to control that piece of me. And that's when I say you can't make somebody so much that they're your all because you have to be able to pull back from them and take care of yourself and
Mhm.
not just take care of them. If
And
that makes sense, if I'm saying it right.
it makes sense, but it's also making sure that, but them being your friend,
Hmm.
they're going to say that in a way that be like, babe, I love you, but you need to go hang out with your boys, or you need to go hang out with your girls. And it's not the
Something
I
else to
don't want.
do.
It's not that I don't want to be with you, but it's like, my significant other tells me all the time. He's like, "Babe, I love you. I love spending time with you. I love everything that we do together." He said, "But I am a firm believer that you need to spend some time with other people outside of me." He said, "Your life should not be rocked around just us."
Yeah.
Um,
And that kind of pressure should not be put on one person.
right, and it's a lot of
That's
pressure.
a lot of pressure, and I'm realizing that, and I recognize, and the thing is, you have to recognize your own red flags, right? Because we all have them. We always scream about, oh, you didn't see their red flags, but do we actually take time to look at our own red flags? And so I had to take time to realize that, I can put a lot of pressure to spend time with someone because if I like you, that's where I want to be. But I need to go find something else to do. I need to have something else going on in my life. Whereas that pressure is not on that other person to fulfill my every desire.
Because think about it, even if the relationships ends in marriage, you
Hmm.
still need
Feel.
You still need that. You
Yeah.
still need that. Yeah, we together. I love you. Woo, woo, woo. But you still need to go spend time with your boys. I call it this is what you need to have a healthy, balanced
Hmm.
relationship. You need time with the Lord. You need time by yourself. You need
Right.
time with a significant other. You need time with your family. You need time
Hmm.
with your friends.
Yes.
Those five things that need to be balanced.
I
And
think you're right. I would agree with that. Hmm.
and if you don't have those five things, some one of those other things is gonna crumble.
Yeah. I think it's easier when you're raising kids, or I hate to say that because I feel like I'm isolating people out and I'm not trying to. But for me, when I was raising my kids, I had so much other stuff to do that I could, hang out with somebody and not make them my everything because I had so many other things to do. Whereas now I'm not raising, not that I'm not raising, you're always raising your kids, but I'm not actively raising children. Like, I'm not dropping off at school, I'm not picking up, I'm not doing any of that. So I have
Exactly.
more time. So now, and I realized that a couple years ago, what I needed to do was find something to fulfill my time. And there were moments where I thought I could fulfill it with somebody else. But you know what? That's too much time I have trying to fulfill it with somebody else because they got other stuff to do. They can't just fulfill my needs. And you can't put and I can't put that pressure on someone else to fulfill all of my needs. I need to find a way to fulfill my own needs. And so I've been learning and growing and learning what I like, what I want to do, and going after the things I want to do so that I don't put that pressure on somebody else to fulfill all of my needs. I don't get it right all the time, but
But but, that's when I always say that the person, um, people say, "Oh, you complete me.
yeah,
Oh, you make me happy." And it's really you. What I always tell my significant other, not that it is that you make me happy, but it is that we do happiness together. We do
right.
happy life. We do
Mhm.
this happy life together where it is that we're walking in partnership and I am making sure that you get your needs are met and my needs are met. And sometimes that may mean
Yeah.
getting away from each other and doing things. I'm supporting you in your dreams and your aspirations, you doing the same in mine, and you're respecting the fact that I'm not gonna be under you 24/7. And matter of fact, you like, okay. And then it makes the time that we get to come back to each other so much more fulfilling and full of joy and so forth. You don't have that bitterness and a resentment because I think people don't understand is when you start to make that person everything,
Right.
bitterness and resentment start to come into play because then you have this expectation of they were supposed to do or they were supposed to be, and then when they disappoint you, because we human beings, we will, then
Yes.
you like, you didn't meet my expectation. And it's like, well, I really wasn't supposed to meet that one.
Yeah. And you have to learn it. I had to learn it. I almost lost a good friend because of my need to have somebody fulfill my everything. And so I had to when it happened and they were like, I can't be responsible for your feelings that way. I went, oh, they're right. They can't be responsible for my feelings that way. So they weren't the problem. I was actually the problem. But that took some time, in prayer and me talking to God and God showing me, hey, Lord, open my eyes so I can see what am I missing. And then him showing me, well, you prioritizing the wrong thing. I'm
Mhm.
putting something else before him, one, and then I'm putting something else before me, and I'm putting the responsibility on somebody else to fulfill my needs
Right.
that they aren't supposed to be feeling in this moment.
Exactly.
So it's a lot, and the whole thing about people breaking you, and I think it all comes down to because the last relationship I was in, I'll say this, and it totally broke my heart, completely broke my heart. But what I had to realize because somebody said to me, "Oh well, he broke you," and I went, "Wait a minute, I was fixed before you got here. You didn't break me.
Come on now.
You may have broken my heart, but you didn't break me because I've survived a lot worse than what you just did."
Hmm.
And I had to wake up one morning and I said that to myself because I woke up crying. And I remember this very morning. It was after a relationship ended. It was probably a couple weeks after. And I woke up crying and I said, "What happened to me?" I was
Hmm.
like, "God, I forgot about me. Like, where did I go?" Because I was so heartbroken over this person. And I just went, "What happened to me?"
Hmm.
And that changed. That's when my healing started. Is because I was so busy focused on what they had done to me and feeling like, oh, my whole world is over. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've survived a lot worse. You
Hmm.
broke up with me. I almost lost my son. You broke up with me. That is not as bad as that.
Thank you.
So I got through that. I can get through this. And so it really took me realizing when someone said that to me, and I'm like, wait a minute. He didn't break me. He may have broke my heart, but he didn't break me.
And I think that's the key that, always, and everybody knows I'm a big a proponent on reflection. And that's why, as Sarita gets ready to read Happy Life, she gonna see some of the things we talked about today. It's
I
actually in the
can't wait
book.
to read
Because it's lessons that I learned, y'all. So y'all can learn through me. So y'all ain't got to make the same mistakes that I did. You can learn through my own lessons. But it's one of the things that I realize is that loving you first. And what does loving you first really look like in making you a priority and understanding that the person enhances your happiness, but is not your everything.
They should add to it. I'm happy. I'm already happy when you got here. You're
Mhm.
just adding to my happiness.
Yes, as you know, as we always say, let us see, you got this song. What you gonna add to me?
Yeah.
And and it's funny because some people think it's the material thing, but it's not the material thing that she's talking about. Is what you gonna add to me? Because when you came, I was a whole filled
Mhm.
person full of love, compassion, excitement, dreams, and hopes, and all these different things. But what you gonna add to that? Like, what are you going to add to those different pieces so that we can be in partnership? And that's why I keep people telling people all the time the relationship be focused on friendship, but
Mhm.
also being each other's partner. Because when
Right.
you each other's partner, you look at things very differently than that's my man, that's my woman, that's a thing. Because we not possessions, we
Right.
people.
Mhm.
But when we start to look at this is my partner, what are the things that you will go through with your partner? Because as a partner, that means if I'm willing to partner with ship with you, then
Right.
you're willing to go in the trenches with me and we going through this thing side by side.
Right. Because what are they adding to, and also what are you adding to somebody else?
Mhm.
We talk a lot, and I always scream. I say, everybody says they want their Boaz. I want my Boaz, but did you look at Ruth?
What was Ruth willing to do? She gleaned in the field.
Right. Did you
She
did
laid
you
at the man's feet.
you lay down? Did you be quiet? Did you wait for him to come, or you? I want my Boaz. I want my Boaz, but nobody wants to be Ruth.
Right, because she had to be in the place of a servant, and
Yeah.
I know we're gonna be wrapping up in a minute, but like I always
Mhm.
tell people, she was in the place of a servant, and a lot of times people don't want to be. Well, I'm
Submissive.
not serving you. You don't want to serve your significant other a plate. You don't want to go pick up his shoes. You don't want to go fold his clothes. You don't want to do all these different things. But the word of God tells us if we come as a servant, that's what he says. If we come as a servant, we're considered his friend. And so serving shows love, serving
Mhm.
shows compassion, serving takes grace, serving takes mercy, all the different things you need to be a relationship. And as we say in 2 Corinthians chapter 13, love is patient, love is kind, love is not boisterous, love don't keep no record. And I remind people that record thing, that's the thing we need to
Check
be.
it off. Well, you did this. You did that.
Or either he got that box, he got that box.
Yep.
Love don't keep no record.
Mhm.
Love is there through the good times, through the bad times, through the ugly times. Are you gonna be there when the wedding vows say through sickness and health, do
Yes.
riches or poor, and of course, through death do us part. Because
Right.
when you start talking about them other pieces, riches or poor, that could be the times where, Paul said we got to be content when we have plenty, we got to be content when we have less. And
Yes.
so that's the same thing in a relationship. If you can't have those things, you can't go through the trenches. You can't go through with me when I'm at the lowest of my low and be my friend and pray for me and encourage me when
Mhm.
I think my world part is over, or if
Yes.
I'm going through anxiety, depression, or death or loss, or whatever the case may be, how you gonna be in partnership with me?
Right. Because are you going to pull me up, or are you going to
Pull me
look
down.
at me while I'm down and go, well, I don't know what you're going to do.
Right.
We're not partners, because I was told once that when you do get with someone, you get with someone who wants the same lifestyle.
Hmm.
What kind of lifestyle do you want? So that goes back into our partnership. Are we going to create a lifestyle that we both want? And is that going to be a priority? Are we going to work towards that? So I can't wait to read your book. I'm super excited. I didn't cheat and
No,
look at it beforehand. I'm waiting, 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 waiting. You can tell I haven't even cracked it open yet.
yeah, I
Like,
see. You already grabbed it up. I'm excited. This has been, it's always a good conversation with you, Sarita.
and I'd be like, oh my God, I hope I didn't offend anybody. I hope I didn't say nothing wrong, because I'm really just shooting out my opinion from my experiences. I don't have, that's all I can go off of. And I always tell people I'm an open book. If you ever want to talk to me, ask me about something, I am a complete open book. I share everything, sometimes too much. But I can only tell you from what I've experienced and from what I've learned and gleaned from other people that have more experience than I do.
And like I said, it has been a pleasure. So I first want to say thank you for coming on. I'm super
Thank
excited for when we get
you.
ready to do part two, y'all. So keep y'all posted. So we'll be back on part two. And part two is gonna be all about the revelations she learned and updates and so forth, but also how the book has really helped her and what was her aha moments from the book. And so I just want to say again, thank you for all of this and just tuning in with us. And thank you all for joining in, tuning us with another episode of Happy Life, as we really have talked about today, all about dating in 2024, the ups and the downs, but also how we really came to that core. To get to that partnership, you need to start with that friendship. And as Sarita reminds us, go out on that coffee date, y'all, like I've been telling y'all. Y'all thought I was crazy when I said it. But the coffee date really helps you to realize, do I really like you? Do I
Mhm.
even want to go to Shay Shay Foo Foo with you? Do I want even want to get dressed to do that?
Right.
So, do I want to waste my time or your time? And so
Mhm.
I think it's key and important for us to remember that. But thank you again for joining us for another episode of Happy Life. We will see you guys soon.